It's another family reunion, and you've been tasked with keeping your eye on your 10-year-old cousin. No big deal, except that talking to this kid feels like trying to converse in a foreign language. That is, when he's even looking up from his phone. Is this a Gen Alpha thing, or are you just getting old? These are the dumbest trends that Generation Alpha might wind up regretting one day on this episode of the Infographics Show. Number 10. So much screen time. If there is one complaint about Gen Alpha that even Gen Z folks are pointing out, it's that these kids are constantly on their phones. Okay, they're not the first digital native generation, but they are the first smartphone natives, growing up with a smartphone or a tablet computer in their hands while they were getting their diapers changed. Can you blame mom? It's hard to get things done with a crying baby, and if another round of Baby Shark quiets those tears, it's the easiest thing to do. But that was just the start, and today's Gen Alpha kids interact with the world in a very different way. For millennials, they might still remember wall phones and dial-up internet. Gen Z still probably started with a standard home computer to work on. But Gen Alpha essentially had a powerful computer just for them the second they had a phone, which might be elementary school in many cases. And when social media, games, and videos are only a poke away at any moment, it can be hard to disconnect from that. And as more schools discuss phone bans or bringing back old ones, it might not be easy to break the habit. But the schools might have a good reason to be worried. Number 9. Their attention span is… Wait, what? It's easy to get bored when there are alternatives. We've all been watching that one TV show that went on forever. But with Gen Alpha, attention spans have reportedly gone down the tubes, decreasing massively and leaving content providers thinking not in minutes but in seconds. The most popular viral videos among Gen Alpha kids are often short, fast-paced, and gimmicky musical segments. Think Baby Shark but with a warped sense of humor. And that has led YouTube providers, streamers, and others to try to tailor their content to the new kids. But that might be a big problem for schools. According to the American Psychological Association, the average attention span has slowly decreased from 2.5 minutes to only 47 seconds from 2004 to the present day. That has not made it easy to teach complex concepts like long division. It's called long for a reason, people. Teachers have reported major problems keeping the current generation of elementary and middle school kids focused on their assignment. The shift back to in-person education after a year of remote learning during COVID in some cases has only made this trickier, which leads some people to ask, don't these kids know how to behave? Number 8. Yakety yak, don't talk back. It's not just that kids are having trouble learning, it's that they're reportedly very resistant to teacher instructions. There have been school rebellions over cell phone bans, and students frequently walk out of class in organized protests. And millennial parents of Gen Alpha kids report that this isn't limited to schools. Their kids talk back to them, challenge their opinions, and even publicly post about how backwards their boomer parents are, to which their parents will say, "Hey, I'm a millennial." But the problem is they're not fully raising them anymore. This is the first generation raised on social media. In the past, when a kid had a disagreement with mom and dad, they would either sulk in their room or maybe hope someone on the Neopets message board agreed with them. Now they can go on Reddit and get thousands of people validating them in only a few minutes. Some parents of Gen Alpha are defending their kids, saying that it's good they don't accept anything on face value. But others are wondering, if this is how they talk to their parents and teachers, how are they going to talk to their first boss or a police officer who pulls them over? And if they are not listening, they might not learn some essential things. Number 7. Does TikTok have a how-to? It's something that happens in every generation. The boomers used to be amazed that millennials didn't know how to use whiteout or dial a rotary phone. As technology changes, a lot of things are being forgotten. That's just the way of the world. But Gen Alpha might be different. They seem to have no interest in a lot of things that are still alive and well, but might not be for long. A good example is the post office, which seems to many of them to be a relic of a simpler time when you couldn't just text your thoughts to the person next to you. But then those things might not be there when they're needed. The post office has been running on a shoestring for a long time, with many worries about service cutbacks. If Gen Alpha has no interest in keeping it afloat, then the age of handwritten cards and postcards from the road might be gone for good. The same goes for just about anything else that Gen Alpha loses interest in, like phone calls. One of the strangest parts of this phenomenon is how the smartphone generation almost never makes phone calls. This has led to smartphones for this generation essentially being portable computers and little more. But a much bigger problem might come from this, and it is aimed directly at the economy. Number 6. Less stuff, please. If there is one thing that you can count on with kids, it's that they'll always want more. More of what? Everything! The long holiday and birthday lists are the surest of sure things, from the days of the Big Wish book from Sears to the current Amazon wish lists. But with Gen Alpha, things might be changing. Inspired by influencers who talk about decluttering and anti-consumerism, some are eschewing material possessions, preferring online tokens and status symbols to things that can be bought online. And this could change the landscape for good. The reasons for this are pretty varied, from worries about the environment to ethical concerns with mass production to simply not thinking top brands are cool. Brick-and-mortar retail is already struggling due to online shopping. Add in a generation that's less interested in both, and that could be a death blow to a large list of chains and small businesses. Gen X and millennials made the malls a sensation, but they might end up watching as their kids deliver the death blow to this massive piece of the American landscape. Seen any of these trends? Leave a comment. Now let's look at something that's becoming more and more common. Number 5. Fake news! Fake news! There are a lot of news sources today that teenagers don't use much anymore. Cable news definitely isn't popular, to say nothing of a good old newspaper. But the bigger problem is that the news sources they're using really aren't news sources at all. One of the most common is TikTok influencers, who often post short-form reels with a highly biased framing, if they're not just making it up. That's where a popular meme about Vladimir Putin opening an ancient vault proving all biblical figures were black came from. The site has also been used to spread misinformation during more serious crises, like the recent hurricanes. But at least that's based on something, unlike another source. Gen Alpha has been growing up with AI as an option, and many are falling back on ChatGPT to answer their questions. The problem is, ChatGPT is little more than a content aggregator, unable to tell fact from fiction. This means that they can easily get inaccurate or even dangerous information. Many of them are printing out these responses and then handing them in as school assignments. Teachers are tired of having to be plagiarism checkers, but they're even more worried about these kids growing up without learning how to detect BS. And they're taking that lack of fact-checking online. Number 4. You posted what? If there is one rule that parents used to instill in their kids, it's to be careful what you post online. And the stakes are higher than ever. When millennials were getting their bearings on the internet, they were mostly posting to private message boards and communities. Now most posts are made on public social media sites with millions or even billions of posters. That means that unhinged people from all around the world can see what a kid posts. And of course, they'll react with all the calm and decorum an older person should have. But the consequences of a loose social media style can be far worse than just a troll visit. Gen Alpha seems to have a serious problem with online filters, to the point that many have gotten into major social media trouble. Some make posts bashing their school or fellow students and find themselves suspended. Others make the very poor decision of discussing committing a crime and then wind up with a visit from the police or the FBI. And even if they don't make a life-risking mistake, odds are high that some of their politically radicalized posts will wind up being read back to them in a job interview in 10 years. And that's if they don't wind up in far more risk now. Number 3. Stranger danger. One of the most memorable features of an 80s or 90s childhood was being warned about the dangers that lurk around every corner. Never take candy from a stranger. Never get into a stranger's car. Always seek out a trusted authority figure if you get lost. Watch out for quicksand. But that was before some kids were interacting with thousands of adults on Twitter before they were even in middle school. That makes it incredibly easy to give away personal information on a daily basis, giving bad people an opportunity to take advantage of kids. And this isn't just something that happens by accident. Some of Gen Alpha enforces it. It's become increasingly popular for kids to feel like they should be posting personal things about them up front to find like-minded people. This can include their age, their race, their pronouns, and their political views and interests, all posted prominently on their user profile. This has led to popular sites like Roblox becoming unsafe for kids, as sinister figures are looking to scam kids or lure them into unsafe situations. It's easy to set up accounts and browse for marks. In this case, kids sharing isn't caring. So talk to Gen Alpha kids, if you can understand them. Number 2. Say what? Every generation has its own slang, and every generation hates the next generation's slang. This isn't a new development, and we all remember bickering with our parents over terms, whether that was cool or fleek. But there's something different about this generation, in that parents don't just dislike the slang, they legitimately don't understand it. Sigma, one of the last letters of the Greek alphabet, is used to mean an independent person who is self-confident and self-sufficient, kinda like an alpha male but more humble. And that's just the start of the new lingo. Some terms are just casual shortenings of words like Riz referring to charisma, but others are just nonsensical. How did "that's so Ohio" come to mean something weird and dumb? Did anyone ask Ohio about this? A lot of the lingo has been called mean-spirited, suited for bullying, that people might not even fully understand. It's been reminiscent of classical coded language like Pig Latin, but used much more widely, which raises one question. If someone doesn't understand what the kids are saying, will they even bother to try, or just stop interacting with them? But there is one term that's even more puzzling, and it relates to the most cringe-worthy Gen Alpha trend. Number 1. What's the skibbity? The most puzzling Gen Alpha slang, skibbity, means good, or bad, or mediocre, or whatever the person is using it to mean, really. And it tops the list of slang banned by frustrated teachers. But this bizarre word goes far beyond lingo, into the sensation that's sweeping the generation. Skibbity Toilet is a bizarre series of viral videos where ugly heads stick themselves out of toilets, singing in nonsensical words and riding around terrorizing people. It went viral to the point of tens of millions of hits. But how big can it possibly be? What started as a 15-second clip of singing toilets has evolved into a bizarre ongoing saga of a futuristic war between toilet heads and other humanoids. Most are only a few minutes at most, and are streamed endlessly by kids who seem to understand them in a way that is baffling to most older people. A movie is in development, which means adults might just have to understand it a little better soon. But if you ask a kid why they like it so much, they're likely to just say, "You're so skibbity." Generational warfare is far from new. So check out You versus Boomer for how ridiculous it can get, or check out this video instead. Which trend makes you cringe? Or got a weird one we missed? Drop them in the comments.